Umlen Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Yutes. We're continuing to discuss Bikurim, whether it's the reading of the Psukim that is pivotal to the Bikurim, or whether it's placing it before the Mizbeach. And then we asked the last question we discussed is that the Rabbi said, Rabbi Barada said, Bikurim. So when are you chayiv? According to Rashi, we are talking about a Yisro who eats Bikurim is like Truma, and if a Yisro, not Kohen, eats Bikurim, they are chayiv misa. From when are they chayiv misa? From the moment that the Bikurim entered Pnei Bayis. Even the Gemara said Pnei Bayis, the most unfortunate say it means the walls of Yerushalayim. When it entered the city of Yerushalayim, that from that moment onwards, doesn't matter where you ate it, a Yisro is chayiv misa. Other Rishonim say we're talking about a kohen. When is a kohen? A kohen who takes bikurim and eats it outside of Yerushalayim. When does it consider bikurim? Mishiyir pnei bayis, and there it means when it entered the walls of the Beis Hamikdash. That's when it has the status of bikurim, and from that moment and onwards, if a kohen takes it outside of the wall of Yerushalayim, they are chayiv. So says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, we're up to 5 lines on the top of the page. So we're continuing the same theme. What is it about Bikurim that's Mechayiv Misa? When does it become Bikurim? So the Gemara now, the same discussion we had before, we're bringing out different Amoraim, see what they have to say. So we have 6 lines on top of the page of Yutes and Aleph. Amar Rav Sheshes. Bikurim. Bikurim. What is critical for Bikurim to become Bikurim? You have to place in front of the Mizbech. But Kriya is not that important. And we already had before that this is the view of the Chachamim and so on. That it's not that important. Says the Gemara, Kiman, Ki Haitana, like the following time. We already brought before that we constantly bring other Tanoim, but or Rabbi Yehuda, and now we're going to say the other time as well. We learned Rabbi Yesi said Shloisha Dvarim. Rabbi Yesi said 3 things. Mishum Shloisha's Kanim. He said 3 different things in the name of 3 different Kanim, and we'll quote one of them, which is relevant to us regarding Bikurim. Rabbi Shmuel says Yochel. Now this is a fascinating piece of the Gemara here. We also have something similar in Megillah and other places about just a little quick introduction. We know that the Eden went to Yisrael. There were 2 major conquests. There was called Kedusha de Shena when Yeshua entered Yisrael and conquered Yisrael. That's called Kedusha de Shena. And according to most, Kedusha de Shena Kitchel Shaita, but like Kitchel Lasalavi. Once the Eden were the Churban Beis Hamikdash, Rishon, they lost the Kedusha of Yisrael. Had to start again. Then there was a second conquest, and that's called Ezra, even though it's called Kibush Ezra, even though they didn't actually go to war, but it was Kibush Ezra, and that's called Kedusha Shnia. Kedusha Shnia, there's a machlekes Tanaim and throughout Shas and Zvachim and Megillah. Here, Kedusha Shnia, Kitchel Shaita Ve Kitchel Asalavi. The Kedusha is forever. However, the 3 parts of Yisrael. One is the entire Yisrael. Is it still a holy place? In other words, Mahatorah, do you still have to give Truma? Do you still have to give Maisa, Shemitah, everything? Does it still Mahatorah apply? And we'll have in the Gemara Erech and the end of the Gemara Erech as well regarding all those things. Yovel, Shemitah and all that. We had in Gittin. And then, what do you call it? And there's that's one category. When the Eden went to Yisrael under Baron Rothschild and they had to, they acquired land in Petah Tikva and all these places in the 1880s, the Shilas became real. They asked Avnei Nezer and other Gedolei Poskim what they have to do. Mahatorah, are they chayiv? And obviously, if it's Mahatorah, the chayiv, it's far stricter regarding how to sell it, mechira and all that. Or is it only midrabban? Then we have a thing called the Beis Hamikdash. The area, the site of the Harabayis. If anyone goes to the Harabayis, the Chayiv Koros and all that, do we say that the Kedusha of the Harabayis continues? Afa Pisha Ein Lebayis, Afa Pisha Ein B'Mizbeach. There's a big machlekes, which is why many people leave Pesach, Erev Pesach, Chatzos, for a few hours from Yerushalayim. So there shouldn't be a shaila according to those poskim that says you have to bring a korban pesach today. In fact, the Kaftor Perach says that they brought korban pesach in his lifetime, and that's the machlekes. Then the third category is Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim has its own set of dinim. You can eat the kosher column on Yerushalayim. Ma'aser Sheni is only Yerushalayim. Does Yerushalayim contain the kedusha today as well or not? So it's like a third category, it's in between. Is Yerushalayim, because it says Lifnei Hashem lekecha, so it seems from the pasuk Yerushalayim is tagged to the Beis Hamikdash. And whatever the status of the Beis Hamikdash is, that's Yerushalayim. Or do we say that that's just telling you where it is, but the kedusha of Yerushalayim has to do with the fact that it has a wall and so on. Okay, remembering that, we'll understand the Gemara here. Rabbi Shmuel says, Yochel, I would have thought, Yalod, I would have thought that even today, one has to bring Ma'aser Sheni to Yerushalayim and eat it in Yerushalayim, the Dinu, and it makes sense. B'choir ton havas mokum. A b'choir, you have to bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and then the b'choir can be eaten only in Yerushalayim by a kohen, like a korban shlamim. Or Ma'aser Sheni ton havas mokum. So to Ma'aser Sheni, you have to bring to Yerushalayim. Ma b'choir eina ela b'fnei habayis. Just like a b'choir. You only bring up chayt in the times of the Beis Hamikdash because you have to be makrabit, you have to sprinkle blood. You don't have the tools. Is af ma'aser eina ela b'fnei habayis. It makes sense that ma'aser is similar to, they both have the same requirement as far as Yerushalayim is concerned, so they should have the same din. That Yerushalayim is dependent on the Beis Hamikdash. No Beis Hamikdash, no Yerushalayim. That's one way of looking at it. But then we can say no. We'll see. So you know why b'choy does not have a chiyuv today of b'choy bringing it to the shekain, tone, matan, domin, ve'emurin, legabim mezbech. In order to bring a b'choy, you have to have a mezbech to sprinkle the blood. In order to put the fats on the mezbech, you don't have that. You cannot. That's the matter of a b'choy. What enables the kohen to eat the b'choy after you do these particular activities? Since you cannot be matter the b'choy today, so you don't bring a b'choy. In other words, the b'choy itself, in theory, you should bring today. Maybe this is how Rashi learns. The b'choy itself, you should bring today, but you just for pile, you can't. Practically, you can't do it. Others say because it had these requirements, it's much stricter, and Maisa does not have these requirements. Maisa is more lenient. But anyway, the way we're learning is Rashi's way. Rashi learns that you don't have the tools. Mashaik and Ma'aser Sheni, there's nothing to do. All you got to do is bring it to Yerushalayim, and then now you can eat it. You're not allowed to eat it outside Yerushalayim. There's a mitzvah say, but in Yerushalayim, that's where you eat it. So maybe you can, since we can still do that today, we should do it. That cannot be an issue because bikurim yechich, and this is what is relevant to us. Bikurim is yechich. And what? That Bikurim does not need a mizbech, and you don't do that today. All Bikurim needs is Yerushalayim, and you don't do that today. So therefore, Ma'aser also you don't do today, and just like B'choy you don't do. You tell me B'choy you need matan damim ve'murim, but that's irrelevant because I look at Bikurim. Says the Gemara. 1 second. Male Bikurim shekain tunin hanocha. Bikurim requires to place it lifnei. You have to put it by the mizbeach, and because by Bikurim you have to put on mizbeach, it says lifnei mizbeach Hashem lekecha. You got to put it by the mizbeach. Oh, and you don't have that. Same thing, same problem. It's different, but it's the same idea. Like by B'choy, you don't have the matter of Bikurim. Mashenk and Ma'aser, you don't got to bring it up. Now, what we're going to bring an eye from here is all he says is shekain tunim hanocha. It doesn't say shekain tunim kriya that you have to read it. So this is the Tana that holds that it's the hanocha that is critical. That's why we bring this whole Gemara down. Tama. Therefore, we have a pasuk v'achalta. It says a pasuk v'achalta l'fnei Hashem lekecha. Right, you should eat before the Eibush the Ma'aser. And in that same pasuk of Ma'aser, it says Ma'aser is going to b'choydes b'karcha. So it's a pasuk we learned till now. It says b'choydes. So we compare Ma'aser to b'choydes. We have a hekesh or memetzino, and that's how we learn out that just like b'choy you don't bring today, Ma'aser Sheni you don't have today either. Makish Ma'aser b'choy b'choy eina el lifnei habayis. Av Ma'aser lifnei habayis. So now, before we focus on the brisa, let's get back to the idea of bikurim. So we're saying the misa, and if it's correct, lifreich. Why does he say bikurim is? Maybe bikurim is different because you have to have hanocha. So you have to have kriya. Mal we're going to get to the kriya v'hanocha. Sounds like from here that when we say that the kriya is ikar, there's an opinion that says you need kriya and hanocha. Not kriya in isolation. Everyone holds l'chatchila. You need both. It sounds like it's not only kriya in isolation. This opinion holds maybe kriya and hanocha. Amar Rabashi. Okay, could be, but l'chayda by he says two things. So you should you exhausted all the things that you need. Amar Rabashi nihi di kuva leka b'mitzvah leka. So Rabashi says back 1 second. You don't gain anything by your answer. You tell me there's no kriya, but everyone knows you do need kriya. So he could have still said, Mekurim is different. You need kriya lechatchila. You need hanocha even by the evet. Still, you should have mentioned kriya. So it sounds like whichever way you learn, we're not happy with what he says. The okay, let's say you're right. That it's not but the evidence you don't need it. Mitzvah mileka. But let me say mitzvah. But let me say a mitzvah and ask the question. El Rashi. So it must be the pshat different. El Rashi. You know why we don't mention over here kriya? Because even though we hold, let's say that kriya is very important. Nevertheless, Kivan the Ika Bikuri Hager, the boy Lemema, the Bikurim of a ger, they cannot do Kriya. He cannot do Kriya. Why not? Because he cannot say Hashem Nishba Hashem Labeseinu. You gave to our ancestors is a Hager. The Loi Motzi Arman, and therefore because he cannot, he has to say Hashem Nishba and he can't say it. Therefore, like Psikali, he can't say, oh, this not every time in Bikuri you need Kriya. A ger doesn't need Kriya. Now this is very interesting. The Gemara says clearly over here that a ger cannot say Lonu Labaseinu. If you remember, we had a Gemara, not a Gemara, actually a Rashbam in Balabasa that Pei Aleph that talks about Bikurim there as well, and he says that Bikurim a ger. Okay, so wait, no, most Tanoim hold that a ger cannot bring Bikurim, or sorry, but brings Bikurim, it cannot say Hashem Labaseinu. And Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says that Avraham was Av Hamoin Goyim, you could say. Comes along Rabbeinu Tam and says that a Goy cannot lead Mezuman, because in benching you say, Shechaltu Laveseinu. A Goy, when he davens, he says if he davens in a shul, he should say, Elokei Avoy Seichem. When he davens at home, he should say, Elokei Yisrael. And because he's not talking to anybody directly, because he said, Elokei Yisrael. That's what Rabbeinu Tam paskins. The Ri, his nephew, argues and says, but there's Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi passes halacha like Rabbi Yehuda. The Yerushalmi passes like Rabbi Yehuda that what a ger does say because Avraham is Av Hamoin Goyim. So that Beinu Tam asks back, that only allows us to say Avraham. But we say in Shmones Avosseinu, you talk about Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Where's Avraham Goyim coming to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov? So the Ri says that the only Gerim that can actually say, like Rabbi Yehuda and maybe Kaida, are Gerim that what do you call it? Are Gerim that come from Bnei Keni, Bnei Knizi, certain Gerim. Then there's another problem with Bikurim. Even if Avraham is Avam and Goyim, it says Los says Lonu. How can I say Los says Lonu? Other Hashem, the Ramban, and other Jitva, they learn that just like Avraham was Ab Haman Goyim, all three of us are considered one, and therefore Yitzchak and Yaakov are also called Ab Haman Goyim, and that's why they can say in Shvanesa Lekei Avosseinu, Kei Avraham, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, because all three of them were Ab Haman Goyim. Anyway, but that's in Shulchan Aruch we pass that way.
But also these days, many of the Gerim have got Jewish ancestors, so that would cover it anyway.
It only helps the ancestor if it's your mother, not if it's your father.
For the davening.
Because as a goy, now that you're a yid, they're not part of your ancestry.
All right. Yeah.
Remember, you're like a brand. But the halach is that they can say, like Rabbi Yehuda, that they can say, even though the Rabbein Tam says the expression Talmud Yerushalmi Meshabashti, the Talmud Yerushalmi making a big mistake. But that's the halacha, like a Talmud Yerushalmi. Says the Gemara. Sorry. So back to the Gemara. So the Gemara, before we get back to folks in the Brayso, the Gemara asks a simple question. You said that we have Bikurim, and you can't bring an eye from Bikurim or Bechor, and therefore we have this pasuk that we have to equate Bikurim to Bechor. Because otherwise we'd say Bechor is different, Bikurim is different, and therefore we have to equate Maisa Sheni to Bechor because it's in the same pasuk. That's a question, but L'Poil, they both have one thing in common. Sai Bechor and Sai Bikurim, when they come, they need a mizbeach. They both need a mizbeach. So the Gemara, the lehad din. So I said, but Teisei the lad, the dinner, the taste of Mehatzad. Let's go back and say, let's learn from Mehatzad. Now, what is that they both have? The fact is, Sai Maisa, Sai Bechor, and Sai Bekurim. Both of them you don't have to do today. So let's learn from both of them that you don't have to do Maisa Sheni today. What do you have to learn from a Hekish? Learn from the fact that you have two of them that don't have. So the Gemara Shanikla Mifra, because they both have something in common that Maisa does not have. For whatever reason, they need different activities, but you need a base of Migdash. You need a Mizbech. And Maisa Sheni does not. So we would have thought that Maisa Sheni may be a Chayiv. That's why we need the Hekish or the Rematzini. So more now stop for a second. So let me ask a question. The Brisa holds for sure B'chor you don't bring today. B'chor you don't bring today. But what do you bring today? You do bring today, what do you call it? You do bring today, you would thought that you bring Maisa Sheni. So that's a question. Maisa Sheni have a question, but B'chor is a given. You don't do B'chor today. You know, what do you hold? Even though we're using the words Kedusha Rishayna, we actually mean Kedusha Shnia, when Ezra went up. If we hold that the second conquest of Ezra, Kitcha L'Shaita, the Kitcha L'Salavai, goes on forever, and therefore we're asking Maisa Sheni whether you should, is Yerushalayim most holy and you have to bring, then after B'chor Nami, then B'chor also should bring today. If the base, because we said that you can be makriv even though you don't have a base Hamikdash. So therefore, why don't you bring B'chor today? And do everything, all the activity that you have to bring, you have to do. Navas. If he holds kedusha shayna kitchel shaita v'loy kitchel laslavei, if he holds that there's no longer any kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash, and so what's the question of Maisa Sheni? The question of Maisa Sheni is, okay, where does Yerushalayim sit? Is Yerushalayim an extension of the Beis Hamikdash? Then doesn't apply today. If Yerushalayim is an extension of Eretz Yisrael, maybe it does, because we're decoupling the two arguments. Not like some of the Shani we learned that it's one machlekes. It's whoever holds this holds that. No, we're decoupling the two arguments. You can hold that Eretz Yisrael is still holy today, but the Beis Hamikdash side is not. In fact, that's the Chassam Sofer explains in Reish Gimel, the famous Shuvah, that according to the Ravid, why today going on the Temple Mount, there's no chorus anymore, is because even though Eretz Yisrael still retains the kedusha, but not the Beis Hamikdash, because we're decoupling the two machlekes. The Rambam holds there is chorus today, because he holds that kedusha Rishon kitchel shayit kitchel laslavei. So he says, so I feel B'chor nami to buy. Ask the same question about B'chor. What's the question? B'chor, there's no Beis Hamikdash anymore today. Okay, Yerushalayim might still be holy, but does that help us with B'chor? So Rashi in the same learn is talking about a case, which the Gemara will actually say that's the Gemara answer here. We're talking about a case where the Beis Hamikdash was standing, you brought the B'chor to the Beis Hamikdash, you sprinkled the blood, you brought the fat, and boom, suddenly the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. And now the question is, can you eat it? So basically being destroyed, and you're worried about eating the korban, now eating the shalayim. Ask the same question. Why should the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash be different than kedusha of Yisrael? What's the logic? If the kedusha here stays on, the kedusha here stays on. If the kedusha does not stay on. So the Chassam Sofer brings, and it's actually I think immediate as well, that we had this idea about the Mizbeach where they came in and they were plaguing the Mizbeach. Bo Paritzim v'Chalalua. The difference is that Yisrael, the Eden didn't live there; they were evicted and so on. But Yisrael, the land is still the same land. But the Beis Hamikdash, they came in and they destroyed it. And Oru An HaYisayba. They tried to undermine the very foundation of Beis Hamikdash. This was man-made that they completely destroyed Beis Hamikdash, and therefore they were plaguing. And they took away the kedusha. They robbed the Beis Hamikdash kedusha, but it has no effect or no bearing on Yisrael itself. They didn't physically touch the land; they just evicted the people. So the Gemara, Omar Avina said, "Likely right, because somebody holds kitchel. The shaita v'loy kitchel also is not holy. Lavas b'hocha b'pchoy. We're talking about b'choy needs the domek kaid the churabay the churabais. Talking about you did all those things, the tools that you need, you did already. Now the question is, b'choy, am I the shayne eating? Vadayim psodekaim, and the flesh of the b'choy is still around. The question, what do you do? So makshin and psodek the domek. And when it comes to a b'chor, we say that no, you don't eat it anymore. Why not? Because in the same pasuk where it says you sprinkle the blood and then you eat the animal. So eating the animal is hinging on sprinkling the blood. Since right this minute, you can no longer sprinkle the blood, you can no longer eat the animal. So we know a b'chor definitely you don't eat in Yerushalayim because you cannot do the other activities sprinkle blood, even though you did it already physically. Madam mizbech, absor mizbech. And then what we do is go to the next step. This is called the laws of symmetry. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Once we've established that the basar of a b'chayr is equal to the dam, the blood of b'chayr, then we say, well, mak is mais b'chayr. And now we say mais is the same thing. Right? The Gemara we're talking about is we have a rule that if A, when it comes to a hekesh, if A teaches B a new halacha, B cannot teach to a third party that same halacha. So how in the world do we say that? The only way you know basar, you cannot eat it because you compare it to dam. How can that basar tell you what to do with ma'aser sheni? So the Gemara ma'aser dog and chulun. Ma'aser sheni is merely chulun. And chulun, you could, A can teach B and B can teach C. It's only by kachim we say you can't do that. Now, there's an interesting machlekes. When you say kachim, are we talking about C or are we talking about B? What is the kachim here? Are we saying that if the C, the beneficiary of this new limud, is kachim, then we cannot learn if it's C, only if it's B? Or do we say the malamed? If B is the malamed, if B is kachim, the malamed, I don't care what C is, you cannot learn. Because in Maisa Sheni, C is not kachim, C is chulun. So therefore, and if you hold it, you go after C, well, C is chulun. And therefore we can learn, just like basar, is you learn from dam that you cannot eat it after making it destroyed. So then we can teach C. C is only chulun, and the law. You look at the lamed, you learn the beneficiary, and if we say yes, we can learn this law. One is you go after the malamed. It means you look at B. Well, B is kachim. My question goes back: How do you know takamai shein don't? As we're talking about, you're learning from b'chayr, ma'aser sheni from b'chayr, and you're learning the basar of ma'aser of b'chayr from dam. But if you hold that you cannot, b'chayr is A and B, but the dam of b'chayr is A, and the basar of b'chayr is B. And how do you know basar of b'chayr you cannot eat anymore? The b'chayr all you need is shalayim because we compare it to the dam. So you want to ask the question. So you have A is dam, B is basar, and C is ma'aser dagon. But if you hold that it's the basar malamed B, you've got a problem. It's kachim, you can't teach. And it's the Gemara, dam basar, chodam milsi. It's not two, because they're both parts of the same carbon, it's all A. It's all A, and therefore, in this case over here, it's not a problem. Even kachim, A can teach B. Okay, the next part of the Mishnah is, the Mishnah says, Eilen alaykin, Kochi is we learned the first Mishnah. That's the second Mishnah. We learned the first Mishnah that Maisa Sheni v'Hegdish Nibdu. If you ate Maisa Sheni or Hegdish that wasn't redeemed, you get Malkus. In addition, remember everything is in addition to the Asay. You also get Malkus. It's allowed. There's a big difference. Sefer is talking about Maisa Sheni Torah. The second is talking about the Maisa Sheni was Torah. The Gavra of the person was Torah. And the problem is you ate it outside of Yerushalayim. The Ka'achel Chutz L'chaima, outside Yerushalayim. Reisha, the first Mishnah when it says Eidan Alokim and Maisa Sheni is talking about Tomei. You were Tomei. The Gavra Tomei, person Tomei. The Ka'achel Be Yerushalayim. The issue is not where you ate it. The problem is who ate it. Since you were tamei, or the Ma'aseh was tamei, and that's where you get malchus. So you how do you take know that for if you ate it in Yerushalayim and you were tamei, the food is tamei. And I say we know there is, but how do you know that there's a lav? You get malchus for it. So you the Tanya, it's a brayse. Says a posse. We'll learn how the way Rashi learns. I'll learn differently. Like biarti mimeni betame. When you do your vidui by Mises, you say like biarti mimenu like chalti mimenu. I didn't know I was an oinen, and like biarti mimenu betame. I did not destroy it when it was tam or it was tame. Meaning, I was not allowed to eat it. It was already a psul there, so I could have just burnt it. I did not burn it. I let it just rot. I did not burn it and use it for myself. Bein sha'ani tomei vutar, bein sha'ani tomei vutar. Talking about a case where I couldn't eat it, but I still didn't burn it. So I'm priding myself that I didn't burn it. I didn't physically go ahead and destroy Ma'aser Sheni. So clearly we see from here that you're not allowed to eat it when you're tummy, you're not tummy. Says the Gemara, very interesting here, by the way. If you look in Rashi here on the left side, about 8 lines in the Rashi, it says in parentheses, Rabbeinu Gufay Tor, the Rashi. His body is Torah. V'yotzen nishmasi b'tara. He passed away. Lepidish Yosem Mikan. Sounds like he passed away right here. In Baba Basra, in the beginning of the third Pedic, not in the new Gemaras, but in the old Gemaras, it says exactly the same words. Kan Meis Rashi. That means Rashi was learning a few Mesechtas concurrently and writing Pirushim. This is amazing. He was writing a Pirush on Baba Basra, writing a Pirush on Makos, not even related Mesechtas, at the same time. Incredible. There, the Rashbam took over, his grandson. Here, his son-in-law, Rabbi Rama Nassim, took over. Rabbi Yehuda bar Nosson. Rabbi Yehuda bar Nosson is the exact same style as Rashi. If you didn't read this little parenthesis, you would think you're learning Rashi. Rashbam made sure that you knew you were not learning Rashi anymore. Says he went further. The Heichen Muzer Alachila. How do you know that you're not allowed to eat it? Where's the Azhara? Where's the Torah said don't eat it? He's just saying a vidu. This he's telling you a fact. Who said you're not allowed to? Who said you're not allowed to eat Ma'aser Sheni when you're tummy or it's tummy? So the Heichen Muzer Alachila ain't a Yedeya. Interesting. The Brisa says I don't know, and the Mephoshah tried to understand what the Brisa doesn't know. But anyway, then the Gemara continues. Tumas haguf behediksiv. If your tummy, it says clearly in pasuk, it can be in the Brisa says I don't know. So the pasuk nefesh ashetiga by b'tamei ha'erev v'layechem and akachim. It says in the pasuk that a nefesh that touches it and he's tummy till at night, you shouldn't be kachim. As soon as he goes mikveh, he can. So how do you know talking about ma'aser sheni? Because truma you're not allowed to eat until the sun sets. And here it says avarachab sort of a mayim. As soon as you go in mikveh, you can eat already. Can't be talking about truma. Kachin for sure he can't be talking about. You got to wait till the following morning to bring a carbon. So it must be talking about ma'aser sheni. Ma'aser sheni. As soon as you go to the mikveh, you already can go ahead and eat. You don't have to wait for Harish Shemesh. Okay, so we know ma'aser sheni that you are not be tummy. El tumas atzim knowing. I know the ma'aser sheni itself is tummy. You're not allowed to eat it. So you will learn from the following. You see, but on the pasuk, it says we talk about the mind that long pasuk we learned before. You're not allowed to eat it in your place, the mice and all that. You have to go to Shalim and all those things. And then it says, well, halanoim, and a few psukim later it says regarding a carbon that was set aside, and then suddenly it contracted a blemish, a mum. What you do is you redeem that carbon. And you can redeem that carbon. You know, as you take the money and you give it based on English, and the carbon stuff you can eat. There are certain restrictions now what you can do with this carbon. You can eat it. You cannot share the wool. You cannot milk it. You don't sell it by Italy's in a store and all that. So there's certain rules. But it says in the pasuk there a leniency. It says b'sharecha techlenu hatomei v'hatoyer. That now a tomei and a toyer can eat it together because it no longer has the kedusha, the full kedusha of a carbon. But Tanya, we learned, Shmuel says, I feel you can have that animal that used to be a carbon, now with a blemish. You can eat a Talmudic person and a Torah person, or the animal itself, Paras Talmud, Paras Torah, you can eat together. We're not worried. Okay. Torah says, the pasuk before where it says and then the following pasuk when it talks about the animal, the blemish, says you can eat it together. We say as it is referring to that pasuk as well. That which I said that the food is tamei and the food is toy, they can put them on the same plate and eat them together. I want you to know not over here, not when it comes to ma'aser sheni. That's how you know if the ma'aser sheni itself is tamei, you cannot eat it. So how do you know that? Okay, so Ma'aser Sheni is tummy. You told me now that you can redeem it. That's what you do with the Ma'aser Sheni. Even in Yerushalayim, but normally in Yerushalayim you're stuck. You have to eat it. That's why they used to leave behind all the Ma'aser Sheni money or food for the people living in Yerushalayim. But if it's tummy, you're allowed to redeem it in Yerushalayim. How do you know? It says in the pasuk if it's too far away from you, you know the Ma'aser Sheni to go to all the way to the Shalayim, or kiloi suchal se'esa, which means literally you cannot carry it too far away. So therefore you can redeem it to the money, right? It says you can redeem it. So we dashin. What do you mean suchal se'esa? Normally you say you can't carry it. He says no. Se'es also means eat. I cannot eat it. They ain't say eating. Remember how I know it says by Yosef and the brothers. But Yosef Masa made fun of. He took the food from him and gave it to the brothers. You cannot eat it. Why can't you eat it? Because it's tummy. So if it's tummy, I can go and redeem it, even though it's in Yerushalayim. I'm going to be with Rashi. How do you know it says Yicha doesn't mean it has to be 10 miles away or 100 miles away? It means even if you're one step outside of the walls of Yerushalayim, you're exempt. It says that I have to carry. There's no distance. There's one pasuk kiyachak. Another pasuk in another part of the pasuk is kiyachak. You cannot carry, and therefore even one step, I can't carry it. Hi, what are we talking about? We just said we need lesuchal se'esa to tell you that if it's tamei in Yerushalayim, you can redeem it, and now you tell me it means carrying. Which one is it? Hi, my boy, if so, if it meant like that you cannot eat because tamei lemakra lesuchal achlei. Say openly, couldn't eat it. Why? Because it's tummy. Why use the word say when he's carrying? Said you're right. Taka means only carrying, but who said taka in Yerushalayim? If it's tummy, you can redeem it. You cannot take it. Why use that expression? Two dinner from it. In Yerushalayim, Tameh, you can redeem it, and if you want to step outside Yerushalayim, you're ready. It's not yet. It's not. It's not. You cannot yet enter Yerushalayim itself. So the Gemara Yosef was sitting on the door of Yerushalayim having the following discussion, or others say that they were having a discussion about the entrance of Yerushalayim. Mahu. If you mamish right the entrance of Yerushalayim, what would the din be then? Says the Gemara. Pshita. This is the din. There's no question. Who bechutz? You're standing outside the Yerushalayim, or masay b'fini, but the food is inside the Yerushalayim. No question. Kotor mechitzas. Now, the mechitzas of Yerushalayim are koilet. In other words, it made it not ma'aser sheni. It's ma'aser sheni, and it can be eaten. Everything else. What about which means if you now take it back out and you eat it, you're over the lot. In other words, I say you're over regardless. Taisa says it. If you have set aside ma'aser sheni and you eat it wherever you are, you're over are not safe for eating it. It says you have to eat kiyim l'fnei lekecha. But the lav of lesucha lecha b'sharecha, you have to bring it into the shalayim, and then if you take it out, you're chayiv. Even if you never went into the shalayim, but the food entered the shalayim, you're ready chalais. Okay. What about hu b'fnim u'masay b'chutz? What about you're inside, but your carry, your bag, according to Rashi, some of the shame is on your shoulder, because others on the floor, is outside. Mahu. How do we treat the food then? Is it like it entered the shalayim or not? It says it says that the place is far away from you, from the entire you. But if part of you is not far away because you're already inside your shlime, it's a chalais of ma'aser sheni. But Papa has a question. Nokid le bekanya. What happens? It's not on your shoulder, or it's not right next to you on the floor, but you have it on a long reed, a reed that's maybe 2 yards long and 2 meters long. How do we treat that? Do we say it's not like it's mamash on your shoulder, and just because you're in the shalayim, but that definitely is outside the shalayim? Or do we say because it's your koyach that's holding it up, it's like it's part of you, and therefore it's as if it's already in shalayim? Teku. And it's amazing is the Gemara says teku, and soon we're going to see the Gemara gives an answer on it. Amar Abasi, Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'aser Sheni, Ma'aser Sheni, for when are you chayiv on it? Maybe the chayav when you chayav and meshira pnei mechayim. When as soon as it sees the walls of Shalayim, you're chayav. What do you mean chayav? Chayav what? We're talking about if you brought it into the Shalayim. As soon as it saw the inside of the wall, you're 1 inch inside, and so inside the wall. And then you took it back outside, you ate it. Not only are you over the say, you're also over the lav as well. You're also over the lav. My time he says if you should eat it before Hashem lekach with Yerushalayim, you cannot eat Yerushalayim. The moment that you enter the Yerushalayim, you were able to climb the first part of the pasuk. You saw the name of Hashem. You can no longer take it out. But whatever you cannot say from Yerushalayim, you can no longer. Then you can't. You don't have the lav if it knows you never entered Yerushalayim, even though there's an asay. But the lav does not apply yet. Lav is only once you enter the base of Migdash, the Yerushalayim. Now you have a lav l'sucha lecha b'shelecha. That's when you get your malchus. So Rabbi Yossi says, "Koyin she'olsa biyodei te'ena shel tevel." Rabbi Yossi says that if a koyin took a fig of tevel, tevel means toiv lo, you didn't give yet the truma, mice and all that. And Amar, he said, "Te'enazu, this fig, trumasa ba'oitza, the truma will be on the end of it. You designate exactly what parts of the teina. Ma'aser rishon b'tzfoina, Ma'aser rishon in the north, or Ma'aser sheni l'droima. Ma'aser sheni is the south part of this thing, of this fig. The hishnas Ma'aser sheni, if it happens to be Ma'aser sheni as well, v'hu b'Yerushalayim, he's in Yerushalayim, or Ma'aser oni v'b'gvul son in Israel. If he happens to eat it, like achas, he gets 1 malchus. Why does he get 1 malchus? Why does he get 1 malchus? Because even though he called all of these names, he didn't set it aside yet. So all you have is the Isser of Tevel. All you have is the Isser of Tevel. What do you call it? You're not over the Isser of Truma. Why is not over the Isser of Truma? You're a kohen. So you're not over the Isser of Truma as well. If he if Yochai is mafresh, so what's the problem? But because he didn't say one thing, he didn't say that the Maisa, the Truma that's included in the Maisa should also be set aside. Because he didn't set aside the Truma's Maisa. No, he's a Kohen. You have to give the Maisa to Levi, and then the Levi has to set aside Truma. In his wording here that he set things aside, he forgot. Or he didn't mention that that this is Maisa, and from the Maisa, the Truma of that is Truma's Maisa. Then there would have been said, then he could have eaten the whole thing because he's a Kohen. But he didn't set that aside. So therefore, he'll get Malchus. He'll get Malchus for Tevel because he did not put aside the Truma's Maisa. But you won't get the other thing. The other you won't get. Yeah. Now, look, why did he get the Malchus for eating Maisa Sheni? Because there's no Malchus. Yisrael is remember he's in Yerushalayim. Yisrael is allowed to eat Maisa Sheni. Yisrael is allowed to eat Maisa Roni. Zor is allowed to eat these things. So there's no Malchus for that. The only Malchus is Truma, but he's a Kohen. He's allowed to eat Truma. The only Malchus is Tevel. What makes this Tevel? He set everything aside, because he did not set aside the Truma that's in the Maisa. Says the Gemara, the Zor Shachla, but if he saw would have eaten it, then like a stein. And he'll get an additional for eating the Truma part. Because he's still not allowed to eat Truma. Other things he can eat, but he's not allowed to eat Truma, so he's chayv the extra one. Now the if it would eat, no, if this Yisrael, if it would never been set aside any of these things, it would just be Tevel. Take one Abeda, he ate Tevel. But now that we nominated, this is Truma, and this is so on, and this is Maisa, so the Yisrael did two Abedas. First of all, he ate Truma. Second of all, he ate the Tevel because he did not, the Truma of the Maisa was set aside. Now it says here, time in Yerushalayim. The only reason is why he was in Yerushalayim. It says that hopefully that's why he was not even Maisa Sheni the Kohen. Habig Gvulin, but had this took place in Gvulin, then what would it have been? Then Loike Shalosh, he would have got three of it. What's a third of it? He ate Maisa Sheni outside of Yerushalayim. He would have got three Malchus. But the problem is, you just said that you're not over Malchus for eating Maisa Sheni outside of Yerushalayim unless you first brought it in and then took it out. My answer is the Ayla the Afka. You brought it in, you took it out. So what's the chiddush there? You brought it in, you took it out. So what's the chiddush? All the things are pretty obvious. When you brought it in, it was still tevel. So therefore, and then you went out. So at that stage, there was no Maisa Sheni set aside. When you said if you brought Maisa Sheni into the Shlaim, then you took it even one step, and then you took it outside, and you ate it, you're chayiv. But here, it wasn't the state of Maisa Sheni when you brought it inside. It was tevel. The chiddush is that even though since it had a potential, it's called we had in Revolution in other places matana shleihumu. It's a machlekes between Tanaim whether it's considered kahumu or not. Is matana shleihumu kihumu damas? As if and the chiddush here is it's as if you already set aside the Maisa Sheni. It's as if the Maisa Sheni was taken in Yerushalayim, and now that you took it back outside Yerushalayim and you ate it, you get malchus for that. That's a chiddush. Ukasavar matanas shleihumu kimisha humu damas. As if you set it aside. This Gemara, by the way, is a big machlekes. The Rambam holds that Matorah you have to give Meiser on Paris. And one of the rice is this Gemara right here. We're talking about a Te'ena, a fig, a Paris, and we're talking about Malchus and everything else. The Kloraya that Tosis and others hold that Meiser Mahatorah is only in the 5 grains, and Paris is only in the Rabbanon. Learns, Tosis in school, he says that when we say Te'ena, we're just using it as an example. We don't literally mean Te'ena. You're right. You could have just said, good point. Others say for advertisers, who said Malchus means Mahatayr? It's Makos Mardus, but the Rabbanon. And then they bring a eye from here, all kinds of dinim regarding Makos Mardus that you get for every Vedic except Makos Mardus, and so on. Another fascinating thing that people have a big problem getting their head around, you're not chayiv, truma, and all those things unless it's a shear, a kazayis. How can you have one taina, truma, which is a 50th, of that, Maisa which is 10%, and they should all be kazayis. And how's that possible? How big can the taina be? So therefore, they all use places that says that taina is merely an example. So it's a bad example for 2 reasons. First of all, there's no Maisa about trader there, yet we're using it, and then it's not shaykh to have all these places. Others want to say there's a famous chakira from the Mishnah Melech. If on Pesach you ate a half a kazayis of matzah, did you do anything? If you ate 99.9% of the kazayas, let's say, did you fulfill the mitzvah or not? Chatzishir. Do we say it works the flip side? Most say it's not. But Mishnah brings some who say that maybe it is Yitzah. So they want to bring an eye from here. How else can you be chayiv and mice and all that? must be talking about a chat kizai. So, but there's an answer. But you're getting malchus, a lav, definitely. So, and the word is, sorry, and the others want to say is that this is not right from here, because this chat kizai is part of a lav. The lav says that you're not allowed to eat truma, you're not allowed to do these things. And when it comes to a lav, we have a rule chat shirosum latayna. And then there's an assay, right? Even and as I say, so maybe the assay is dragged. No, wherever there's an alav, and the lav chatishi is also, so that assay also. So, for example, matzah on Pesach, there's no lav that says that you're not allowed to go to Pesach without eating matzah. So, because there's no such lav, there's no such thing as chatishir. When it comes to truma, maybe there is a thing of chatzishir, because even though ta'ina, you don't have kazesim to beat truma, but because the mitzvah of truma is connected with the lav, that you're not allowed to eat it, when it's truma. So, and by lav, chatzishir is significant. So the flip side in this case is that a chatzishir is significant enough that it's truma and mice and all of these things.
The container just be the size of the container is already all the mice.
No, he's saying right here, part of it. Bedroima, Betsfeina, he goes eat oikets. The oikets, this oikets is a 50th of the te'ena. The oikets is the stem, is a 50th of the te'ena, and it's a kazayas. Impossible. Take about further. Let's finish the mission. You tell me that you tell me you hold that even though you didn't set it aside, as if you set it aside. But there is absolutely no argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. If you have fruits that are not yet mature, they haven't yet reached maturity, and we're talking about Maisa, and they came into the Shalayim. Shabbat says Yachzer Maisa Sheni Shalahem. Sorry, I skipped the line. Al Peish Limalach the Babu Shlaim. She yiv the Maisa Sheni Shalahem. The Yechel B'chol Makom. It's as if it never went into the Shalayim, and therefore you can redeem it wherever you want, and because there's no Maisa Sheni yet, and you can eat it wherever you want. However, and Gemar, it means once, not only when they're ripe, but you have to pile it up. That's called, the meruach and so on. What's the argument? I'll pay the shenigrim malachim. They're mature. But we didn't set aside yet the Maisa Sheni. Beishamai says Yachze Maisa Sheni Shalem v'Yech B'Shalayim. That's it. It's as if there was once it went to the Shalayim, that becomes the Maisa Sheni, and you could no longer redeem it because you were already one step in. You were once in the Shalayim, even though you didn't set it aside because Matana Shalayhu Mekorvadami. And Beis Hillel says no. Since you didn't set aside, even though it was inside the Shalayim, take it wherever you want. Give the V'Yech B'Chamak. So clearly, Beis Hillel, and the halacha of Beis Hillel, that matana shloihur mekilayhur medamin, even though it was in Yerushalayim, these are that and hakotu mechitzes. L'chayim was already in Yerushalayim, so therefore, if you take it out, there's two dinim. One din is that once Yerushalayim, you can eat it, and if you eat it outside Yerushalayim, you get malchus. There's another din is whether you could redeem it. Once in Yerushalayim, but now you're outside Yerushalayim. At least can I redeem it? And we say no. Also, that you cannot do. Once in Yerushalayim is a chalais of kedusha, you cannot redeem it. So the chayda is clear that here Yisrael holds in Amar Rabba mechitza lechel daraisa mechitza likat rabbanon. That Yerushalayim is considered a mechitza that once you're inside you can eat it there, and if you eat it, you take it back out. You'll get malchus to eat it. That's mahatreir. But you're talking about here, but they're arguing about padiyah. The whole din that once you take it out, I can no longer redeem it. Mahatreir, why can't you redeem it? The fact is that it's not outside Yerushalayim. And why can't you redeem it outside Yerushalayim, even though it was in Yerushalayim? That's only midrabanan. We're scared that if we're going to allow you to redeem it, even though it was in Yerushalayim, next time you'll eat it outside Yerushalayim. You don't realize the difference. There's only Gzei Rabbanan. Gzei Rabbanan, when it comes to matana shlahuma, the whole thing's a chumrah that we treat it as if it was already set aside. But since the whole iser of redeeming it outside Yerushalayim is Rabbanan, we're not going to be so machmer to say that if it was in Yerushalayim and you didn't take it as if that far we're not going to go. Comes along, that's one answer they must. Ravina says, no, I can say maybe that's Mahatayra as well, that you can't redeem it. We're not going to make a distinction. Or maybe that's a Rabbanan, but they're going to say that once in Yerushalayim you cannot redeem it. You know what's going on here? The Nokale Bekanya. We're talking about it here. You were in Yerushalayim, but this never was in Yerushalayim. It was on a stick, on a reed, miles behind you. But it's your koyach that's carrying it. And the question is, like our Papa says, Teku, whether we answer the Papa Teku, whether it's considered as if it's in Yerushalayim or not. And the tip should boil a Papa. Interesting. So you have a teku, and right away the Gemara resolves the question. We'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow and Tuesday there's